Step right up and join the most vibrant circus community in the world, circustalk.com. This is In Center Ring. I'm your host, Jonathan Lee Iverson. He's the Brooklyn kid turned American circus icon, from juggling about the streets of Europe down to the legendary corners of Sesame Street. He has seared his indelible mark upon circus history. In Center Ring presents Mr. Paul Binder.
I got to tell you about the Big Apple Circus. When you say it was ahead of its time, for us, it was very present. For the ones who established it, myself and Jimmy and Tisha and Vanessa and Rob Libin and a few, handful of other people. I'm embarrassed that I can't remember at the moment, but it was so vital. And to this day, where there's affection, or dare I say it, love for one another, because that experience was so vital. It was so wonderful. We loved doing what we were doing, and the audience loved that. It was at the heart of what we were doing. So,
as you can see, I set up my whole set for you because, you're quite legendary, and I don't do this for everybody.
Who designed that set? It's nice. It's cool.
It's wonderful.
Is it real popcorn or is that a photo?
I wish. I wish. Well, like on these Zooms, like you can, put any virtual background you want. It's a lot of fun.
So I got a question to ask you about popcorn. When I was working at the Big Apple Circus, every day I would go over to the popcorning. We would, you had plastic bags.
Right.
You fill a little plastic bag with popcorn. It's on the house. Doesn't cost anything. And between acts, I'd be backstage eating popcorn. Did you have the same experience? Or?
My kids, man. On the road, my kids are like. My daughter especially. My daughter has such a sweet tooth, and it's stunning. She's so well built. She's an athlete, and
that's great.
She's so funny, but she's always had a sweet tooth, and every time I look around, she's nibbling on something. So that was her thing. She'd get the popcorn, anything she'd get her hands on.
I'm amazed I broke the habit. I was an addict. I couldn't do a day but I broke the habit. Nowadays, I don't know what I'm. I wonder what I'm addicted. I wonder what I'm addicted to now. I don't remember. I don't know what I. I have 6 grandkids. 3 of whom live here, right here in Sarasota. Wow. They live 3.5 minutes from here. I could walk to their house, and they can walk here. Although they often take their bicycles over. But I also have a little swimming pool back there, that's it. They're suckers. Right. They have to come over to go swimming. So Grandpa gets to see them at those times.
It makes me with Grandpa.
Yeah, I have a little. What
happens. Yeah. That's what happens.
It's absolutely true about grandparents and grandkids. They were made in heaven for me. I don't have any of the responsibility, just the pleasure.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I laugh all the time. I'm like, I don't even know who my mother is. I don't know who this woman is. Stuff they can get away with, and she keeps them she fulfills their sweet tooth. That's what it is, I'm like, my poor wife, she's trying to keep everybody in good health, but my mother's very cooperative because speaking of fresh fruits, she went and got this juicer since she's been and so she's been juicing for us like crazy, and that's what I've been on.
See, I told you it looked healthy.
Yeah, that's what it is. She's been juicing. So
I have a Vitamix. I make green drink for myself all the time.
Yeah, man, it works.
Oh, you believe me, very, very healthy.
You'll have your hair.
Here it is. Here you are, folks. This is because I drink green drinks that I make in the Vitamix.
I try to keep my hair so bad. I did everything, and it was about 2009. No. Yeah, 2008.
Yeah.
2008. I'll never forget. It was August of 2008.
Yep.
And it was so hot. We were in New York, and my son was due for his haircut, and we just had these bushy froze, and I sat down. I was so tired of having it. I just said, cut it off.
So, but were you balding at the time?
I was going bald. I could see it.
Yeah.
My hair.
Oh, I see. Yeah, yeah, receded.
And then I was like, you know what? Just cut it off.
Oh,
And
man,
I got
what?
home, and my wife just thought it was just the greatest thing.
No, that's
was it.
wonderful. That
Well,
yeah.
she loved it. She was like, "Oh my goodness, that gave us another,
Okay.
That just put some kink in our marriage."
Jonathan, does she rub her hand across the top of your head?
Among other things, yes.
Well, she's a good woman. I don't know how she chose you, but what the heck?
Me neither. Yeah. I tell her she's the best decision I made. I don't even know how she made the decision she made.
Good. I'm happy to hear it, though.
When you came up with the concept of Big Apple Circus, because I know you started out as a juggler. Now you were over in Europe for a while.
I learned juggling at the San Francisco Mime Troupe.
Okay.
A guy named Larry Pizzoni, who was the founder of the Pickle Family Circus, was our teacher at the Mime Troupe. He was in the Mime Troupe in those days. And amongst other things, there were other circus skills that were being trained, but I took to juggling like a fish in the ocean. And I found a partner in Michael Christensen there. We were both, and the thing that you're referencing is I had left the Mime Troupe. I was actually on the East Coast at the time, and Michael was supposed to go off to juggle in Europe with Larry Pizzoni, our teacher, right? And that was okay. So one day I got a message. And he went over to England, to what the heck is the name of that? Kent. He went over to Kent in England, which is far from London. It's a rural part of the country, and he was there. And all of a sudden, Pizzoni told him he couldn't come because Larry planned to go, but his wife didn't think it was such a good idea. So, because they, by the way, really were co-founders of Pickle Family, right. Peggy Snyder. But so all of a sudden, I got a telegram one day. You remember those? Remember telegrams, Jonathan? You young folks, we used to get telegrams because and it said, "Can you come, and partner with me?" Larry's not coming. Boy, in a flash, I just went, "Wow, what an opportunity!" And what a chance. Because I knew what a terrific performer Michael was, as both an actor and I watched him juggle. He handled it, and basically, we did an act that he had created with Larry. That was our first act. And we took it on the streets we took it to London. We put it together in a barn in Kent. And then we took it to London. And first we went to Hyde Park Corner. Now, if you know London, Hyde Park Corner is a place where people gather to hear political speeches, right? The individuals stand on little pedestals and harangue the audience, and
I thought that was all over the place.
Well, probably, yeah, probably. But this is
we had a lot of those at home.
This is the most famous one.
Yeah.
Hyde Park Corner, and so we went there and we did it. We said, "Oh, look, there's lots of people here. We got it. We have an audience," and we started juggling. We did our act, and in the middle, and indeed we attracted an audience. Oh, what's going on here? And we passed the hat when it was over. This is really probably our first time we were passing the hat together on this journey that we took. And as we did, a London cop came walking up, a Bobby came walking up. And he said, "Gentlemen, may I have a few words with you?" It was nice he called us gentlemen. He said, "I wanted to inform you that soliciting on the Queen's property is strictly forbidden."
Oh, wow.
Just like that, we kind of went,
he was very kind about it.
He was very kind, because not only that, but he let us keep what we had taken on that first round. But basically, he was saying, "Get the hell out of here, or I'll put you in jail." I mean, right. But yes, not all of the cops that we met in our journey were kind. There was a guy in Switzerland, in Zurich. The guy came walking up. We had our equipment sort of laid out on the ground, which was part of the act. And all of a sudden, we're in the middle of the act, and a guy walks by and kicks all our equipment around. Who the hell are you? And he said, Lieutenant, good enough? Just like that. He was a cop in the Zurich police force.
Switzerland, of all places.
Yeah, you would have thought, yeah, come on, do that kind of Swiss German sweetness to me, don't you know? But that's in contrast to the guy we met the police in a lot of places. Usually, basically, they said, come on, get out of here. Or we got out when we saw them coming, you know. Because in those days, street performers were not tolerated the way they, now they have whole sections of town that are sort of lined out for street performers in places like that, in London and Paris, Zurich. But in those days, we were pioneers, you know. We had a great place in Paris. I don't know, for those of you who know Paris, at the corner where the church, the Église Saint-Germain-des-Prés, is a corner in a very active part of Paris, and that was our best place. We would start there. We would work there. We would do as much as an hour and a half, 2 hours of juggling with short breaks, little 10-minute breaks in between sets. We'd do a set. We'd pass the hat. The audience would disperse. We'd take a breath. Maybe take a little coffee. Drink a little coffee, and then do another set. Right. So usually the same material. Sometimes we had 3 or 4 different shows. Anyway, that was a great place because there were always people walking by who would stop. And we had a pitch. Michael used to do the pitch. He would say, ladies and gentlemen, we are not supported by the government of France or the government of the United States or any other form of organized crime. We are strictly supported by you, our audience. So if you liked what you saw, put something in the hat. And I would say, and if you didn't like what you saw, put something in the hat. We would say that together, the last line. And sure enough, it was a great pitch.
Now, you all were featured on Sesame Street, right?
I can't remember if it was before. Yeah, it was when we were. Is the answer. Now, was it before we went off? No, when we came back from Paris, working in Paris, we needed to still make a living, but we were back in the U.S. and we went over to Washington Square Park in the Village, Greenwich Village, and we had a good place there to juggle and pass the hat. That was kind of more of a sanctuary for people that, down in the Village. The cops didn't bother us there. And a guy walked up to us there and he announced, he said, that he worked for Sesame Street and we we like to be on Sesame Street. I was trying to be cool, It's like, oh, you will, maybe, yeah, maybe we'll do that.
Oh, here, why don't you talk to my people?
yeah. Have your people call my people. And it was like, I was mind blown. Sesame Street, are you kidding me?
Right.
And I wanted to get paid like big money. Oh, forget about it. We don't pay big money. We pay, whatever. What do they call the basic pay you get?
Oh, doggone it, just was in my mind.
Yeah.
Scale. Yeah,
we got paid scale for that. We did. The prime show we did, and that's on YouTube, by the way. Was we were 2 working guys asked to set up Oscar the Grouch's bowling alley. And the juggling pins were the bowling pins. I said, well, we don't have 10 of them. And he said, set up what you have. This is Oscar. He said, this is Grouch bowling, like that. And then he slammed the thing down, the top of his garbage can down. It's on YouTube. It's real fun. And that was the base show. But the same day we recorded that show for airing, we recorded, I believe, 6 or 7 inserts. The numbers, 4, 5, 6, 7. Well, I think it was 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. We asked a couple of other jugglers who we knew come and join us for the higher numbers, because the most we ever did was 7 between us. Okay, and that was difficult, believe me.
Right.
Nowadays, boy, there are some people that are doing 9 like it's the back of the hand, but it was just not so. Anyway, we did the inserts, and those inserts ran for 10 years on Sesame Street. I never, I never knew when they were going to run, but if I watched Sesame, sooner or later, there would be, the jugglers would come on to do a number. We did, and they were just showing them for 9 or 10 years. And what do you suppose we got at the end of the year? Check. Did you say we got a payment for one time for each one? So I'd get a check I'd be on all year, and I'd get a check for $160.
They're very faithful with those checks, though.
Oh,
no matter how small, they're so humiliating. I still get a check. I was in the Boys Club of Harlem, and we did.
Oh yeah.
The film Glory and Malcolm X, both Denzel Washington movies.
Really?
Yeah, we did the choral work.
Yeah.
And, it's so funny. Every now and then I get these checks from SAG, and they're like, I guess they're enough to. I can't even buy gum, but
let me tell you what, I love that recording. I think we did it all in one day. All of those things, recorded in one day, and I love them. They're just the treasure. And being on that show is treasure. Performing with Oscar the Grouch, treasure.
Now, I don't want to assume that Big Apple just sprouted out. What were the next steps? What were you actually venturing towards?
Well, when we were in France, we worked at the Casino de Paris, and we did a TV show with you may or may not remember, there was a danseuse named Zizi Jamer. Zizi was. Did you remember as a kid? You may have seen Hans Christian Andersen with Danny Kaye. Did you ever see that movie? I'm Hans Christian. Oh, the song, no. Wonderful, wonderful Copenhagen. Now I sing flat, but don't worry about it. I can fix it. It was a wonderful movie with Danny Kaye, and there was a character in it called Thumbelina, which he created. Hans Christian Andersen was the great fairy tale writer from Denmark. And he created a character called Thumbelina with his thumb. It was a character that, and she would come alive, and that was Zizi Jamer. She was the dancer, Thumbelina. Anyway, she asked us, she and her husband, whose name was, oh my, I can't believe I'm forgetting his name, but he was the ballet master in chief of the Ballet de Marseille, in Marseille, and he was the director of the show that she was doing at the Casino de Paris at the time, and that's how we got into the show. We auditioned for him and her, okay, and there was this gorgeous. She had moved out of the show, and this gorgeous woman took her place, like you, without her wig on. She was bald and tall, and gorgeous. She wore wigs. She was from, I think, the Cameroons. I think that's where she was from. Absolutely stunning and great dancer, and very tall, maybe 6'1", 6'2", gorgeous woman. I'm blanking on her name. Here we go again. At this age, hey, if I can remember her name, we celebrate. Anyway, she was the star of the show when Zizi and whatever his name is, her husband, Pierre somebody. Anyway, we did the show, but we did the TV version of the show with Zizi herself and Annie Fratellini and Pierre Tex, who were well known. They were a clown duet. She was the 5th generation of her family, from the family Fratellini in France, to be a circus clown. And she worked with Pierre, who was her husband, who was a filmmaker, and it made some very nice films, which I've seen. And they were a clown duet, and they were starting their own circus. And they saw this television show we did with Zizi. And he used to say, I was watching, and I see, all of a sudden, I see Paul and Michael, and I say, Annie, viens ici, come here. And he pointed, he said, we need them. And they made us an offer to come and tour with them.
Wow.
all over France. And that was my first introduction to that style of circus, the one ring, into what the French called cirque intime, intimate circus.
Okay.
And that was it. We toured all over France with Annie and Pierre, and it was wonderful. It was a wonderful experience, and it became the model for the Big Apple Circus.
Now, what was your experience with circus leading up to that?
Well, very little, other than working with Larry Pizzoni. But we didn't actually create circus. We were in the San Francisco Mime Troupe. We worked before the show. We were the pre-show, the circus artists.
Okay.
Because we were doing it outdoor. It was an outdoor theater, the Mime Troupe. We worked in the parks around the Bay Area in San Francisco. And so we did for example, our juggling was sort of a pre-show thing to attract a crowd. The same thing, that's where we learned to pass the hat.
Right.
But when we took the shows that we did on tour, the stage shows that we did on tour, we usually played indoors in like college auditoriums and set our commedia stage on their real stage. So we did the same show, but we did it indoors, and sort of masked on a college theater.
Okay.
And we brought it to New York. We brought a couple of shows, but the one that I was in was called The Dragon Lady's Revenge, and it was a comedy based on the old comic strip, or the characters came out of the old comic strip, Terry and the Pirates. Do you remember that at all? Or no. You're too young to remember that.
I'm a baby, man. I'm a baby.
Yeah, that's right. But Terry and the Pirates was this kind of fantasy of Americans in Asia, American soldiers in Asia, and there were these incredible characters that they would come across. So, the Dragon Lady was an Asian character, and I played the part of you got to understand what it was. We were very political theater. It was an anti-war play. So it was set in a fantasy world in Asia, which if you thought for a moment, it was obviously Vietnam. We won an Obie Award for that show, Off-Broadway Award.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, and and it was moved to another theater. A producer in another theater took it to eventually. Anyway, the Mime Troupe was an extraordinary group, and that's where I learned how to juggle. Larry Pizzoni taught me there, and it was part of our repertoire. That's where I learned enough to go to Europe, work on the streets, get involved with the circus there, which is Fratellini, the Nouveau Cirque de Paris. And we literally toured all over France, grand tour of France. And then back up in Paris where we had started. It was a beloved circus. And I was just blown away. It was like, God, this is so wonderful. It's like nothing I ever experienced, certainly not in America. You worked for the organization that was the circus in America.
Right.
To me, that was the circus. I grew up with it. And all of a sudden, I was in this charming and delightful environment. So it became the inspiration for the Big Apple Circus when we finally decided to do it.
I've always had this fantasy of you all sitting together in over a big old bucket of popcorn and just contriving this wonderful idea, how to build a circus. I talk to my friend a lot, Kevin Bernardos. And I love, his story and, him going out and venturing forward and boldly creating his own show.
I am amazed that they succeeded. Amazed. This is tough stuff.
It is. It's
keeping that alive,
Yeah. And he's, I think he's really doing a bright thing by doing these virtual shows. Because we're going to be here for a while, in my opinion, and I'm going to definitely get your wise input about, where you think live events, live entertainment, how do we pivot, how long you think we're going to be in here, but who are your icons? Who are your showbiz models? Interesting.
I mentioned one is Danny Kaye. Danny Kaye was a brilliant comedian, and he moved like a dream. He could dance, he could sing. He was a neighborhood guy. He lived, he's older than I am, but he was legendary in our neighborhood in Brooklyn, growing up in Brooklyn. His real name was something David Daniel Kaminsky or something like that. He was a Jewish actor, you know.
Right.
But he went to Hollywood and made some hysterical films. I mean, really funny stuff. I mean, he was a total goofball clown, and he could sing and he could dance, and he just was so he was one. I was growing up watching. Oh my God, look at this! Look at this! Oh my God, I'm laughing. So I've always looked back and seen what his great work was. The other one was Ray Bolger. Ray Bolger was, yeah, you have, because he was the Scarecrow in The Wizard of Oz.
Ah, okay.
Okay, yeah. Ray Bolger was a singer, song and dance man, by the way, self-trained. And as a kid, it was a Broadway show. I went with my parents, my first Broadway show. I think I was about 9 years old. And it was called Where's Charlie? And Where's Charlie was from a play called Charlie's Aunt. So, and Charlie's Aunt was this character, Charlie's Aunt from Brazil, where the nuts come from. And he played the part. Why? Because Charlie had to have an aunt, and the aunt had to convince the girl to fall in love with Charlie. I mean, that's the summary of the whole show. And somewhere in the second act, the story going on, Bolger walks to the front of the stage. Charlie walks to the front of the stage, and he sings and he dances, and then he asks us to sing with him. And he does a number called Once in Love with Amy. And the audience has parts, and he teaches them how they're going to sing it. I mean, it was a brilliant piece of theater. But whoever knew about actors who could stop a show, walk to the front of the stage, and work with the audience, that was unheard of. And I was just blown away. I am sure that to this day, that's when I said, all I want to do is be in show business. Right? It made people happy.
Yes.
Including myself.
Right.
But you could see it was making people happy. So, and I had a mother who, truthfully, a dear woman, but she was depressed. I only understood that later on. You know what I mean? But as a kid, I didn't know that per se. What I knew was it was my job to keep her happy, make her happy. And I think that was good training. For theater and circus, and what we finally did at the Big Apple Circus. Interesting enough, as a result, at my father and mother's 50th wedding anniversary, by that time the Big Apple Circus was a success. They came to Lincoln Center, and we threw a surprise party. Their entire families were all in the audience, and when we finished the show, we all went into the ring and sat at dining tables and ate a meal, a full meal with white dining cloth tables. And that was a tribute to my mother at that time.
Oh, wow.
That woman, it all, you know what I mean? It's kind of a puzzle that I fit together many, many years later. But it gave me the strength, or she did, to do what I did. And believe me, it wasn't easy. And believe me, there were doubts all the way, Oh my God. Every day there was something that we got to get past this. We got to get through this. We got to figure this out. I learned there, and I learned when the cops stopped us on the streets in Europe. But it was 24/7 doing the Big Apple Circus, and year round, by the way, because even though we performed at our top 33 weeks, the rest of the year was spent planning and rehearsing and training each year. So we had some great trainers, I will tell you, as well. Buckles was a master. He was a great trainer. And the elephants responded with he was very quiet with them. He would give the commands very quietly and move, so that the movement, of course, was messaging too, as a trainer. And it was stunning how well they would respond. I remember he had Anime, who was a great elephant. It was really his star elephant. She was a Burmese woodland elephant. She came over here with two other elephants, April and June. She was May. She was actually named for the great Asian actress Anime Wong. And brilliant animal. I mean, loved doing the work, clearly loved doing the work. She couldn't wait to get into the ring. And I would watch her. As you may remember, Jonathan, the audience, the space between the ring curb and where the audience sat was about this big.
Yes.
The front row of our box seats. And Anna Mae would come into the ring and whatever else she was there, she could do pirouettes, big turns at command, okay? And I would watch her. I watch her seeing with the eye that was closest to the audience always, right? Here and then here. She would do a pirouette turn, and as she did, she would lift up her trunk so she wouldn't whack somebody in the front row.
Wow.
But I mean, clearly she would do the turn up and down, being very careful. She didn't want to hurt human beings. Listen, folks out there in whatever, in virtual land,
Yeah.
look it up. Anna Mae and Ben Williams at the Big Apple Circus. It is a brilliant act, by the way, brilliant act. And in it, he lies down on the ground, and Anna Mae steps over him one step at a time. Four, 1, 2, very carefully. She's being very careful. And she puts her foot down about this far from where he is, so that it exaggerated it even more. But, he's lying there. He touches her leg so she knows exactly where he is if he needs, that's part of the communication going on. But stunning, this elephant is stepping right over him. And complete confidence that she will. Elephants don't like stepping on squishy things.
No.
It's awful. If you were an elephant, oh God, I wouldn't want to do that.
I want to get into I always joke with people about being a boss. I always said I never envied Kenneth. I never envied yourself. I don't envy Kevin. I said, it's like everybody, we talk a lot, the performers and crew and what we might do or whatever. I said, listen, I don't wear that crown. I just wear the top hat and I just do what I'm told. I would love you to really just bite into, what it's like to not only build a circus, but an iconic circus. I mean, you built a piece of New York history, American American circus. I mean, you really built a real glorious institution that really, I mean, I
loved it. I loved every minute.
Story hasn't been told. I mean, like I said, the fact that Harris, the Hip Hop Juggler, found his calling because of one of your school programs. Yep. And I just think of
it's important to say that not only were we were an iconic performing institution, but we had community programs that were very successful.
Yes.
We trained kids in one program. We had a hospital program that was brilliant. Michael Christensen started. It was his brilliant idea. Clown care unit, we called it. And eventually, it got folded into a new organization that now runs it. But it was amazing conception that he gave us,
And that was ahead of its time because and
nobody else was doing it at that time.
Right?
Yeah.
And I have you all to thank for that because I remember my last years with Ringling. I get this call from our wonderful PR people. We were on a campaign to raise money for cancer. They were going to work with our elephants and that whole thing. And she tells me, well, we're going to be going to hospitals, children's hospitals, and it's going to be pretty frequent. And I can tell you, I was not for it initially because I just like, man, I don't know.
Scary to contemplate, right?
Man, I tell you, I did maybe one or two, and I was hooked. I said, we got to do those all the time. Those kids, the families,
they're so grateful. It takes them out of the routine of the hospital, which is, can be extremely depressing for the kid, and it allows them to kind of, for a moment, Henry Miller said it's a tiny, he called the circus a tiny arena of forgetfulness.
Mm.
Where for a moment you forget the everyday world. That's how the clown care worked in those hospitals. And clown care unit was very well trained. There was a whole training program that Michael worked out and developed with doctors and stuff. And and everybody was trained in the protocols of that program, because it was so obvious that it was enormously successful in giving to the kids, and the kids who they visit. It was wonderful, wonderful. Music and magic and singing and just stupid jokes. We said the stupider the better.
Yeah.
We can succeed, we can be stupid,
Right.
But Jonathan, what a gratifying experience that was for us as an organization. And that was all Michael's creation. Now, he had a whole staff after a while, and then he spread it all over the country.
Wow.
We had units in Atlanta and Washington, D.C. and Seattle, and I can't remember if we had anything in L.A. At one time, including New York, there were 18 clown care units. Boston was a major one. We had great funding for Boston Children's Hospital, which is a wonderful hospital.
You've run a circus, you built a legacy. You've written a book about your experiences as well.
I wish I had a copy of my book to hold up for the camera.
Oh, no, don't worry. We can get
order. You can order it online. Go to my Big Apple. My really defunct webpage. I don't do much with it anymore, but it's for sale at a discount, and I sign a copy if you buy it there.
Well, if you're looking at just the live entertainment world right now, the live events world right now, where we're at, if you're in there and you have your hands on Big Apple at this moment, I mean, what would be the direction you would want to be taking right now?
It's a good question, Jonathan. I mean, you see what some people are doing, some virtual stuff. Some of it is brilliant. The musical stuff that I've seen is brilliant, Tiffany Riley, who was a clown and worked at the Big Apple Circus and worked in our clown care unit, who's a wonderful woman, wonderful.
Yes, she is.
Very heartful and, intelligent, interesting, and short. She's all those things, She took over the clown care unit when the Big Apple Circus, when the rest of the Big Apple Circus clown care people moved over to a thing called Healthy Humor. But she took over the Boston unit of the Big Apple Circus, major unit, again, well-funded unit, Boston Children's Hospital. She started doing the visits virtually to kids. So that's that's happening, and it's successful. The medical people at the hospital say this is wonderful that you're able to continue to do it this way. So I've seen good stuff. I did cabarets, but they were not circus cabarets. Oh, Bindlestiff Family Circus does, well, they've stopped for the season now, but they were doing it every Monday night. I think Keith Nelson and Stephanie Mansour are, these are very talented people. And he pulls that off every week. It's mind-blowing. I mean, an hour to an hour and a half of programming, and he's able to introduce and talk. He doesn't have a script in front of him. I never could do that. I could never do that as a ringmaster. I'd be rehearsing my words backstage, even though it was 30 seconds just before going on every time. I better remember. Because there were even times where I'd go into the ring of the Big Apple Circus, have a card with my words on it. I mean, I was allowed to do that.
Well, it was yours.
But that was the toughest as a MC type, where it was surely the toughest job I had to do ever. But I got through it.
That's something else, though. I mean, because you were not only wearing the top hat of Big Apple Circus, but you were manning the reins of Big Apple Circus. I mean, that's a strain in and of itself. I mean, you have to do kind of both here.
Yeah, it never stopped.
To introduce people with, who you're paying. You might have issues there, and Well,
what's interesting is, this is very important to say. we booked what we thought were the best acts available for that year.
Mm-hmm.
And we did it well over a year in advance, sometimes a year and a half in advance. We'd do a contract. I mean, and I would go to the festivals. I was on the jury at the Paris Festival regularly, and occasionally on the jury at the Monte Carlo Festival. I worked with Prince Rainier. I worked with Princess Stephanie. Those were exciting times, you know. But we would book, we would see acts. We'd be very careful. We'd offer. We didn't have enough money to, for example, compete with the Feld family for an act. He was given, or they were giving them, you know, 48 weeks or 50 weeks and we were only giving 33. That alone made our bid less attractive. So we were very careful. We would say, you know, we've seen your act. We would like to offer you. And then our general manager, Guillaume Dufresnoy, would negotiate the deal. I never negotiated. I said, I really want you. If you have a good price, I'll bring it over. You know, and I'd ask for their price. And then I'd bring the price to Guillaume and let him negotiate it, you know. Well, so we had now you couldn't book 3 juggling acts, so it wasn't all 3 best that way, but
right.
You know, there were categories of people we would book. But here, before I would sign a contract, I would do all of my homework. First of all, I would hope to meet every one of them in person. So at the festivals, I went backstage and talked to them first, or even went to circuses. I'd go to Circus Kaye, I'd go to Circus Krone in Germany, and Circus Kaye in Switzerland. I'd go to Circus Grus in France, and I would talk to an artist if I thought they would be interested in coming, and I'd get a sense of who they were. Were they good people? And then I'd do my homework. I would ask other circus directors, are they good citizens? Am I going to have trouble with this one or that one? Occasionally they would say, yeah, not so, you know, this one's a rascal or whatever. I had problems with it, but then I'd have to make a judgment. I love the act so much, I got to have it. Maybe there's a way of managing the rascal part, you know?
Right.
And then we have a group of people, and we would start from the beginning teaching them that this was the Big Apple Circus, our first meetings, our first rehearsals. We do it slightly differently. We want you to this. We want to give you everything you want, but we have to Big Appleize you. You're part of a team. And we had company members who were part of the Big Apple Circus. So their job, as they understood it, was to impart that philosophy as well as do their act. And we had some great people in that company. I'm thinking of Regina Dubrovitskaya, who did 5 different acts at the Big Apple Circus, all class acts. You know, she once said to Mr. Paul, I will do anything you want, but just give me the time, right? And she would create an act. She was brilliant. I mean, she's an example. And I've told you, Jimmy and Tisha Tinsman and Vanessa Thomas. I mean, Vanessa always found a way to enrich an act, you know, always.
She's wonderful.
You know her well, of course. She was ringmaster for a couple of years, too.
You all were very good with that, like presenting women ringmasters.
Yes.
Vanessa Thomas, she knows. If you're watching, Vanessa, you know we're in love. But she's like an icon. And you know, the fact that she was one of the first women you've had, if not the first woman you had to don that top hat.
Yes, indeed.
And you continued in that tradition.
You know, she was a original company core company member, and I watched her and listened to her, talked to her, became friends with her, and I said she could do this. She was surprised when I said you could do this, but you know what? She had the courage to say, "Yeah, I can do it," and she did. Bingo. And so now, okay, you can say I was ahead of my time, Jonathan, but you know, you can tell I love to talk about those things because it brings out, you know, all that wonderful memory of something that we did it, me and colleagues. Nobody did anything solo in the theatrical business. You have collaborators, and I had the greatest collaborators, the core company, and then artists who came in and designers, you know, scenic designer, lighting designer, costume designer, musical director. These were incredible people. They were magical to me. And there I was, you know, little Paulie from Brooklyn sitting amongst them. You know, I used to have that feeling.
Right.
You know, so we'd be in an early production meeting. And I'd sit there and go, look at the talent that's at this table. Look at that. Little Paulie from Brooklyn is with all these talented people. It's great. Great life. Great pleasure, yeah.
But I have to ask, you know, Granddad Paulie, who is now a sage, you're a sage. If you could just indulge me one time, I would love your nugget of wisdom.
Oh my.
For all of the, let's say, you know, you have all of these budding impresarios, you have so many people with their live entertainment ventures, even the artists. You know, we're all kind of up in the air. We're shifting, pivoting. We're trying to figure out what's the next step. And I'm coming to the great old stage. I won't call you old. We don't age in circus.
The old timer. That's right.
The grand sage. Yes.
You know, we never said goodbye. We always said see you down the road.
That's right.
So,
that's right.
So
the grand sage, Paul Binder. What would you say?
Here's what I would say. Look, I can't quite put it into the current context, but this I know from my own experience. And the great Joseph Campbell, who taught comparative mythology at Sarah Lawrence College for 38 years, and was a brilliant researcher. He learned from every culture. He went to Hindu culture, he went to India, studied that, lived there with people, did it in France and Germany, and so on. He was a great researcher of Native American. That's where he began as a culture. And eventually, he was credited with this phrase: "Follow your passion." He didn't actually say "follow your passion." He said, "Follow your bliss," which was the Hindu vision of what you had to do to feel whole and feel like a human being, even though it might be a struggle. It may be difficult to get there, but on the path, on the road. But for me, and I believe if each and everyone, I see it in you, Jonathan, there's no doubt in my mind that you followed your bliss, even though it fell on its nose a couple of years ago, and that we're in this confused time. What the Buddhist masters would say, this is a lesson in confusion, but following your passion is, that's my advice. That's my old guy advice. That's my wise guy advice, which is that always worked. I somehow can, that story I told you about Ray Bolger, all I want to do is be in show business, right? Once I began to connect with how that was personally, internally for me, what it was feeling like doing the work I was doing. And it wasn't easy to do that, to find, it was there the whole time. Every time I connected, and it was constantly reconnecting, I knew I was doing the right thing for me. And the right thing for me was following somehow. That would put me in concert with the forces of nature. But that's what I say to people. Don't give up that way. I can't promise that they're going to be in show business. I don't know what they're going to do. But their passion knows what they're going to do, and if they discover it in themselves and follow it, it never fails. That's my advice. I don't want to get too, schmoozy about it, but it's real. It's real, I assure you. And don't tell anybody, Jonathan Lee Iverson, I once offered you a job to work at the Big Apple Circus.
I'll keep it quiet.
And while we're on the subject, you refused. Not refused. You had other ideas. I
had I was dealing with that big show somewhere.
Yes, you were. You were waiting for the next opportunity. You were off at that point. You were out.
Yeah, I was. What was so funny about that? Literally they got me the week before.
Okay.
They literally got me the week before.
Good for you, man. There was an actor named Johnny Martin. He was French, actually, Jean Martin, with a dog who did nothing. And he would hold up the hoop and he would say, "Lady, jump." And she would lie down. She was sitting and she would lie down. and essentially go to sleep. And you go, she is exhausted. We have to leave her alone at this moment, right? And he went on with it. Yeah. But that's how I feel right now. I am exhausted.
No.
Jonathan, you know I have enormous affection and respect for you. So be well. See you down the road as soon as possible. And I have ideas we could work on some performance project, virtual performance project together.
Absolutely. I love it. We need to come up with something. That'll be a hit.
Okay. We'll talk offline, but not tonight or today.
Right. Ladies and gentlemen, children of all ages, he is the one, the only Paul Binder.
The black experience in circuses go back hundreds of years, and we do it with our own style. The circus has been a microcosm of the outside world. Many of the same prejudices that you see in the outside world are present in the circus.
So it's moving past the vision or the limited vision that the society has for you and stepping into the talent and skill that you know you have to go forward as a performer.
The circus is a vast international community, and there's only one place to connect for jobs, events, the latest news, and so much more. CircusTalk.com. Join today.